What up, everybody? This is Dario Hunt from Living Life Fearless. Welcome back to another entry to my Fearless Show podcast. With me is a new guest, Mr. Mike Stefansson. Say what up to everybody.
What's up, everybody? Super happy to be here. I remember when LLF got started, and as Dario and I will talk about, this may be a long time coming, but hey, everything happens for a reason in a certain amount of time, right? Happy to be here.
Yeah, so a little background on us. We've been friends for quite a while now, since college days. You were actually my first interview that you did about LF was with you as you were, going through your journalism classes and everything. And I think, my first interview way back then was with you. So he might be becoming a more regular face around here these days as we work together to create some content and create some stuff. I don't know if you want to give a little background about yourself and what you do and everything like that.
I would love to, man. It's funny. I just watched that story before we came on because we were young pups together in school as I was learning how to become, a broadcast style storyteller. And then Dario at the same time was building this brand. And so it was fun to do a little story as it was early on in both of our stages in this. But yeah, anyways, got that broadcast journalism degree in Reno with, going to school with Dario, and then turned that into a career so far in television where I've went to a few different states and got to meet a ton of people and tell a bunch of awesome stories as a sports guy, sports anchor. I started my career in Billings, Montana, which I always like to equate like our business to like baseball or something like that. You don't go straight to the big leagues. You got to go to your podunk farm team or whatever. And there's certainly no disrespect because I went to Billings, Montana and made some amazing lifelong friends and memories. And 3.5 years later, got my chops a little bit. I watched one of my first sportscasts the other day. Actually, it was incredible in the worst way. But and it ended up turning that into 2 years at our same ownership station in Spokane, Washington. If you know anything about our business, it's super competitive. So to be able to go within the same company was a huge blessing. And so 2 years there, I got to do a little play-by-play, got to dip my feet into some different kind of things, got to cover some pretty big-time stuff. And then parlayed that into getting to come home to Reno, where I went to school, get to cover the Wolfpack now, alma mater. And I'm that Monday through Friday sports guy now on the news. Things are a little different nowadays, which we'll obviously talk about, but that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years or so since we got done with school, is just trying to tell sports stories, cover games. Some days it's lighthearted with just highlights and that kind of stuff. And other days, you're talking about people getting fired or people passing away, or you're telling a really impactful story. So it's kind of like a mixed bag, and it's been pretty fun so far. But with that said, I'm excited to do some different kind of things with you, man.
Yeah. So like I said, it's been a while since we've known. I think we met back freshman year, I believe.
It was it had to be 09 or between 08 and 09.
I think it was freshman year. It definitely was freshman year because, funny story. I ended up at your house. I guess we tell the story. It's been enough years. There's enough players out here that we tell the story. I think I ended up at your house just randomly one night with a couple of my teammates. You guys were having some house party.
Little shindig.
Yeah, a little showed up. We showed up at the end of the night and whatever. Chopped it up a little bit. Didn't think anything too much about it. And then, my birthday happened to roll around I
was wondering if you would go there, yeah.
Yeah, my birthday had to roll around a month later, maybe something like that, There's he's a young pup out there in college out there in Nevada. We don't have living in the dorms, you need a spot to have a party.
I'm the local guy with the house.
I'm like, hey man, let me just go ahead and hit him up, see what's going on, dog. I was like, yo, what's good, man?
Calculated.
And then, ended up having a party that night, and I don't remember much about the party. Well, actually, I actually do.
I remember a little bit, but we keep that between ourselves. Yeah,
I remember quite a bit about that one actually. I ended up leaving my own party by midnight. Let's just put that. It was pretty level by then.
Yeah.
And then we just basically been friends ever since then, man.
And you remember the next day, the agreement was that if you had the party, I had to come pick your ass up the next morning and come clean my house.
Did I though? I barely remember the next day.
Well, I came and picked you up and you cleaned my house. Yeah.
All right, there we go. Well,
I mean, obviously, it wasn't like a full energized effort from yourself, but there was some high reaching stuff we needed you to get down and worked out well.
Nah, I was pretty nice and wrecked that next day. I do remember that, man. Like,
yeah, I think that was the same party that someone put a hole in my wall. Yeah.
I don't recall that part.
I don't think that was directly your fault, but it was somebody's fault.
It wasn't. I definitely didn't. I don't think I left the kitchen like that entire night. Yeah, it was pretty funny. A
lot of good times. A lot of good times in that kitchen.
Got a lot of stories throughout the years together, and just been friends ever since. And we started this. I started my LLF thing. You started journalism, kind of around the getting more serious into it around the same time, and kind of been growing ever since. And here we are, and you're looking to expand and grow a little bit and get into different areas, and and we talked about this, I think, before all this craziness with, the coronavirus really started kicking off. So it just happened to be kind of perfect time to actually branch out because, as you know, sports are non-existent these days.
What
so
a weird time.
I mean, before we get into a lot, just talk about, how things are going out there, with the virus and whatnot, and situation in Reno. What's it looking like out there?
Yeah, the cases continue to climb. I couldn't give you exact numbers right now, but as far as the whole state of Nevada, obviously Las Vegas takes up a majority when you're talking about the numbers. I think there's been less than 10 deaths statewide, so that's, could be a lot worse, I suppose. But yeah, sports have completely stopped. I mean, we're getting ready for, Nevada spring season, baseball, softball, a bunch of other stuff. Spring football is going to start. And then the high school kids, I feel for all these high school seniors who at this point they're saying now, April 30th is the day where they're going to go back to school, but that just got pushed back from the 16th, and it's just going to continue.
I don't see schools getting reopened at all this year.
Exactly, and so I feel for like all those seniors because the college kids are going to get the extra year that they've already announced, but you don't get that in high school. Like, you're not going to get your senior season back.
Yeah, I mean, right. I feel for the basketball players for sure in college, because especially if it was like your last year and you finally get a chance to go to the tournament or you had the opportunity to make tournament.
Unspeakable.
And they just canceled the whole thing. So, and that's that is the biggest thing, in almost all sports. So to not be able to kind of participate in that or even have a shot to it sucks, but obviously can't happen with what's going on, but it's rough.
That's the thing. This is when you have to it's just like reality sets in and you realize that sports are usually a break from reality, and that's why you love sports, but you can't, you realize how trivial sports at the end of the day really are when something like this happens.
You also realize how boring life is without them too, though,
Goodness gracious, my man.
How much people are missing that getaway, that extra, something on, from your daily lives. And I'm a professional athlete. I've been playing in Europe for a good while now. I never really told a story about getting back. Like for us, I was playing in the ABA League, which is the Adriatic League, with teams like Red Star and just a bunch of like top level teams all throughout Europe and EuroLeague teams. So we had literally one game left in our season. I think the second Monday of March, I think, was our last game of the season. And they just started like getting really hit in the Adriatic area because they kind of avoided it for a while. And then cases just started popping up. And by Thursday, they're saying, might be going to suspend. And then by, next week, it ended up being like basically the whole month suspended indefinitely. And it sucked because we just had that one game left and then we had playoffs and like we were going to be right there into it. And, nobody knew what was going on. That was crazy. Like literally nobody knew what was going on. Everybody just kind of waiting day by day and hour by hour to see what's going to happen. And, every sports league was basically just suspended, hopefully seeing if they can come back anytime soon. And technically my league is still suspended, so like it's still not canceled. And, now they're talking about like July return for playoffs. It's just a whole bunch of like crazy. Like normally your season's done by May. I definitely would have been done by about, almost now, if depending on how playoffs went. And so I was stuck in Montenegro, the very last country to get a case of the coronavirus, or at least a confirmed case of the coronavirus. So it wasn't too bad for me out there because I was in a little small beach town. It was pretty isolated. It wasn't like a ton of visitors, in and out. So there wasn't too much exposure. But, it started getting the capital a little bit, and it's a small country. So it's good and bad. It's good that, we were the last ones to get it, but it's also bad because when it does happen, things go below in lockdown pretty quickly. And, went from pretty chill to just curfews and everything's on lockdown, borders on lockdown, airports closed. And, and you getting the word from back home, people telling, the government saying, hey, any Americans abroad need to or should come home, as soon as they can, or risk being stuck indefinitely, basically. And, and it's not because of them. It's more because, whatever country has their own, obviously, rules and laws. And if it goes on lockdown, it goes on lockdown. So Booze was like scrambling. I actually wasn't tripping that much because I'm going to be working regardless of what I do. But it was just like, all right, like when the first opportunity comes, I'm going to take it, to go home. So I remember one guy from the other team in our country, which plays EuroLeague. He took the chance. He went through the border at, I want to say, Albania. Albania was still having some flights out. You get to other countries and that have more international airports, because while there is an airport in our country, it's not an international one. You have to go somewhere else before to even really go anywhere. And so if you can't even go somewhere else before, you're having a hard time. So he got to the border. The flight got canceled that night. He ended up spending the night there. Caught on the next one some morning to Turkey, and then Turkey went home. So, I kind of been through situations like this before, being a military kid and living all over the world, but a lot of my teammates have not. So people were stressing, trying to get home, and it got I think after that, there's a whole other week wait. We called the embassy trying to see what they can do, get us out and all this stuff. And I think Sunday night, one of our teammates, he tried setting up a private plane. I'm like, God, no names. We tried setting up a private plane for us to take to just to fly to Turkey, to get from Turkey to the US. And they're talking about it, and I'm thinking about it, but at the same time, it's a private plane, and those are around 50,000 just to fly for 1 hour to Istanbul. And I'm like, man, and it was a bit sketchy too. We're talking about over too much weight because people and kids and bags. And I was like, bro, I'm not getting on no small private plane if it's even getting close to overweight. So I wasn't with it. So it ended up falling through. People were still upset, but I'm like, I need to at least see what the embassy going to be talking about. This is Sunday, and they said we're going to let you know after the weekend. So Monday's the next day. I just had a feeling, and I was like, I'm gonna call them tomorrow morning, see what it is. And I ended up getting up a little bit later, but one of my teammates ended up calling them maybe 30 minutes before I was gonna call them. An hour before I called them, I was gonna call them, and they ended up telling them hey, yeah, there's a flight today that's leaving at 2, and this is probably and he texted the group, so got the group. It's probably around 11:30 text saying, hey, there's a flight at 2 if you can make it. It's leaving to Paris. So, and I'm just getting up at 11:30, reading this shit. So I'm like, all right, I didn't ask no question, bet. Start throwing the rest of my shit in my bags. I was already kind of packed, but it wasn't fully packed. So I started throwing doing the one arm sweep, just taking shit off tables, just throwing that shit in the bags. Damn. And I'm calling the embassy at the same time, trying to make sure there's a flight. What's good? They're like, yeah, there's a flight at 2. We're still trying to see if you can get cleared by the French embassy to even take that flight and get into France, basically, because Paris at this time is on complete fucking lockdown. So I'm like, all right, well, let me know whatever. I'm packing anyways, and it's an hour, about an hour drive to the airport. So they're like, hey, you need to be there by 1 type shit. So I'm like, it's 11:30. So I'm just throwing everything in bags and, texting the group. Everybody's, asking questions in the group. I'm not asking no questions. I'm like, yo, I'm out. I'm going to be leaving in 15, 20 minutes, yo. I'm like, yo, if anybody needs a ride, I'm out. And dudes, they're still a little shaky, not sure if they're going to take it. And the first guy, Lance Harris, from St. Louis, shout out to him because he's the one who made the call and put it in the group at first. So he's like, yo, I'm leaving too. Like, hey, let me ride with you. So he hopped in with me and just fucking booked it all the way there to, to the airport, which got there in about 45 minutes, parked, got on. And that shit was like a movie, man. Like,
wow.
Literally got packed up and left in like 20 minutes, got out of there, drove there, got there about like 1:05. You could have got there a little later, honestly, but they just wanted to make sure that you got there. And, and this shit's on lockdown because the only flights coming out of Podgorica is the capital. The only flights coming out of there are basically approved flights or flights to go pick up their people from around, Europe to bring them home. So we had to get on a list to get on the flight. And there's just a couple other, like, I think people from France and, some other nationals and stuff like that. And you get on, all the flight attendants is on full, like, hazmat suits. Like, I'm talking, like, full yellow suits, like, full mask, full gloves, like, everything, like, goggles, like, everything on the flight. Like, it's like some movie shit, bro. And it's maybe 10 people on there. So you take that, you got to Paris. So I'm thinking like, all right, cool. I'm gonna get my bags. We're gonna stay the night and we're gonna try to catch a flight tomorrow. Cause by the time there's for sure no flights leaving that day, cause Paris is on fucking lockdown. And even like Air France is only doing one flight a day from Paris to, to the US, to LA, basically. And we get there and we go to customs and the dude looks at us. He's like, no, you can't come in. Like, you can't come through here. And we're looking like, yo, what the fuck you talking about? Like, yo, what? My bags are right there. Like, nah. He's like, no, if you're not national, nobody can step foot in the country. Like, so, and we're like, man, like, so we call the embassy and the embassy basically is telling us like, yeah, you're gonna have to just go transfer. Go to the transfer area and wait, so. So, and we need to have them, and then we try to go transfer area, and then they're like, nah, you can't come through if you don't got a ticket. So literally had to call the team, tell them to book a flight right there. Like, even if we were gonna make that flight, book that flight just so we can pass through to the transfer area. So we got through, and so our bags are literally just sitting there because it's self-transfer because it's not a connected flight because we literally left like 20 minutes. So we didn't even know what flights are out there or what. We just knew we had to get there if we were gonna get home. So our bags are just sitting there. And they're like, oh, you're going to have to make a claim when you get to the States and all this, da-da-da. So we go through there. And the whole transfer area is like, all the international transfer area is just full because everybody's been stuck there. Like, people been stuck there 2-3 days because flights been getting canceled. So I'm like, man, this shit is, and there's every restaurant, when I say like every restaurant is closed, every store is closed, like nothing in the whole entire airport is open. I don't know if people have been to the Paris International Airport. It's like a big ass airport and everything's closed. And there's maybe like 20 people working. And like, we're looking around like, damn, like we ain't eating at all that day. So like we looking around like, so we had to end up paying somebody like work for Air France to go outside to this one little like convenience store that was open in the airport to buy us like a bunch of like those little, refrigerator sandwiches basically and some chips and some water or whatever and bring it back for us for that night. Like, and all the couches is full, all the lounge area is full. So like we ended up having to sleep on the floor, like in the airport, like it was like one of the worst sleeps probably ever have, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody's just on the floor, just trying to just wait it out. Ended up getting up the next day, and I ended up booking like 3 flights because they had been canceling flights literally like all day. Like every flight is almost getting canceled. So I ended up booking like 3 different flights just to make sure I can get back. And I ended up getting on one from there the next day at 1 p.m. the next day. So I'm there from 3 that previous day to like basically 1 p.m. that next day, just sleep in the airport and shit, and like same clothes, just your backpack type shit. Like, so ended up getting on that flight, came to the States, we went through Canada, and then went to Canada, Chicago, Phoenix, and then, man, it's still, I only got one of my bags still waiting out of it. So
you're still waiting on a bag? Yeah,
and that's been like, that shit was like some movie type shit, just getting out of the country.
You'll never forget that. But at the same time, now you'll never complain about traveling because it will never be as bad as that.
I mean, we took it in stride. Like we were pretty good about it. Like honestly, like just I'm used. Like I said, it's not my first time doing some shit like this. Like I've had to be evacuated by military planes and shit like that before. So like it's not like I've never experienced something like this. Just like at this scale, like with like regular airports and cities on complete lockdown. Like literally can't step foot into Paris. Like through customs. Like it was just some crazy shit. It was just like everything was getting thrown at you and just. You just see everybody just like and just not knowing what the fuck is going on, like not knowing if you're gonna get out of the airport. Like some people, they said, have been waiting there like 2-3 days. Like I'm saying, like stuck there, and there's no food. Like there's no restaurants, there's no stores. Like hotels closed. Like no, like it was just it was rough. It was definitely.
That must have been very like surreal.
Oh, it was unreal. Stuff. Like I was just like, man, this is like some movie shit. Like, and I'm going through my gate, and like you're going through the whole terminal, and like you literally see nothing. You see nobody. You see nothing in the whole terminal, and like a big ass terminal. You just walk through.
And
like
that place is usually a zoo.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, you asked about how Reno was, and I kind of even mentioned that like casinos are shut down. Which you think about that. I mean, you think about the Vegas Strip being shut down. Like
Vegas.
That is just dead. Like that. You talk about
never
surreal.
Expect Vegas to shut down. Yeah. I don't think
that's our whole state's economy. That's the whole state's economy. It's casinos. It's kind of crazy, man.
Yeah. So
you never shut down like in my entire life, growing up here. I did a story the other day at a casino and, walking through, as you would know, having to gone to school here, you just hear the chimes and the coins falling, right? Every casino always has those same kind of noises. And so those are like in my brain from just growing up here. And I was in a casino that was silent. All you could hear was the air conditioner. And it was like the freakiest thing ever. An empty sports book. I mean, yeah, this is a time weird. That it's not like we're just going to ever, we're going to let this time go by and never remember it. It's going to be one of those that like everybody that's like living in this time right now is going to have like a totally different perspective, you would hope, on like just life and how precious like everything is, really. Freedom.
I mean, like the world shut down. Like this is never, hopefully, ever going to happen again. But this, at this scale, it's never happened. Like, yeah, there's been incidents in the past, but in the past we weren't as connected. You know what I'm saying? And like the industries weren't as big, so like it wasn't like a complete shutdown like it is now. Like this is everything. Like it's fucking crazy.
And I wonder, like, if it would have. I mean, you wonder if this happens, however, like right before we're born, like 30, 35 years ago, if you would be able to maintain these kind of things, like the way so many businesses have been able to adapt to
clearly
this kind of connection. Right. And like, you just wonder how we would have adapted. We would have found some way to keep things going, but it wouldn't have been as pretty. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's bad and crazy. People are dying. People are getting sick left and right. It's just at the same time, though, it's like, I think this is going to force a lot of change in like how we operate, because you can see how fragile shit is, and like how I've said this before, like how fragile it is, and how just in like if you're not an adaptable type business, you know what I'm saying, like how you're living on the fucking knife's edge more than you can even imagine. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we're just basically been hoping and praying that nothing serious ever really happens. You know what I'm saying? But the people that have adopted, I think you're going to see some amazing shit to come out afterwards for sure. Right. New ways of doing things, because there's always been a massive shift in almost every generation. I think this is probably going to be our like biggest shift ever.
And that'll be very interesting to oversee it as people like in our position to be like storytellers throughout this, and to see how people adapt and to go before and after type of thing. And I just. Also, something is just you've realized how together we all really are in this kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like we have such isolated lifestyles and people and groups and everything, but really, like we truly are all
just
one.
How we are the
like
same.
We all gotta look out.
We're all the same. Like we like just doing the basic shit. Nobody can do the basic shit. And when you're like brought down to like literally the bare minimum of your life, like you realize just how we're basically the same fucking people, which I've always been saying. Like we literally are. Like this is going on globally. This isn't just a country or a region or culture, or this is global type shit. And like, it's crazy. And I don't know, it's been weird for me because I've kind of avoided this like in a weird way the whole time, because I was in Australia, started the season, then I ended up leaving early, and I had some options. I came home for a little bit, and then I had some options, and I was going to go to, I had offers in Japan, I had offers in like South Korea and like Malaysia, like that whole area. And I had offers in Italy, and these are like serious offers that like I was like considering, but I was like, now I'm gonna wait, and just kept waiting. And I had this offer in Montenegro, and not to go into details, but it just hit things I was looking for. Ended up taking this, and all those areas I was looking at got hit like extremely hard by this, and like we ended up being like the very last country in Europe to have a confirmed case. And I was literally in Milan seeing a teammate, some friends, like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks before it like went on full lockdown, and Paris. I went to Milan, then Paris, and then went back, and like that was like a week and a half before like the whole shit went on lockdown. So it's been weird, like missing all that, like by like this much, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I was in, Nevada was in the Mountain West tournament, and they had actually moved it up a week this year. So a lot of conference basketball tournaments didn't even get to finish or start.
Yeah, you guys,
Mountain West was a week earlier, so they were one of the few that was done. And I was in Vegas the day of the first confirmed case, and then sure enough, the weeks after that, it really just exponentially grew. And so we ended up going out. I brought my wife down. Actually, once Nevada lost, I had 2 more nights in the room, so I was like, man, we gotta take advantage of this. So I flew her down one way from Reno. And then we just drove back up together after a couple nights in Vegas, which was great. But we went out. We ended up going out like the last weekend that like clubs were open and stuff like that. So it's kind of freaky. But we've been good. It's been a month since, and we feel great. So
yeah, that's been weird. So as a reporter, like as a sports reporter in this time, like what do you do? Like, what's the situation like for sports reporters out there?
Well, it's funny. I think everybody, and you kind of see it, the people I'm plugged into on social media and stuff, you see how different stations and people across the country have adapted. And so some stations have kept like their sports segment, which is always like toward the end of the show. They've kept that traditional sports segment, and they've tried to do like super creative things, like maybe, some people have just done like recap type stories, you know what I mean? Or like looked back on the year that was or whatever, which to me is like cool to do sometimes, but at the end of the day, you're going to run out of that stuff pretty quick. Some people have done like
and
stories
NFL
on
throwing them out there like every fucking day, saying some throwback game, some throwback date. Like,
Right. But as far as like keeping it local, which we're in, like local news, like it's hard to like go up there and justify like doing a big chunk of content that's like all national sports, which you're obviously, if you're a sports fan, you're getting just pounded with the same storyline because we don't have many right now. So basically our station, to keep long story short, took the approach of like, we're just going to scrap the sports segment. And like, I can't really argue with that because I could be creative and find things to do, but I just wonder like in this time, it might be like a welcome distraction, but is it really as impactful as like a daily, like what I do on the daily? I think I would run out of like real things that like people, I don't know, should see at this time. So anyways, they basically turned me into a news reporter. So that's what our station has decided to do. And as, I got into the business to do sports. Let's just put it that way. More so because obviously I love sports, but they're really lighthearted. I like to try to make you feel better after you watch like a lot of usually mostly unfortunate news. And then you get to sports and hopefully I can cheer you back up. So that's usually my daily goal. But now they've got me covering just like pretty much all things like coronavirus, like just how people are adjusting, how businesses are adjusting. And so they're sending me out with a camera. I'm shooting all my own video. I'm doing all my own interviewing and producing and editing. And luckily they've got a lot of us working remotely now. So I've got like the whole setup at home, where I can edit and I can feed stuff back to the station. I can get into my scripts and everything and I can edit all that stuff. So like they've had me do, stories with restaurants or food providers that are adjusting. I went to a seafood provider actually, and you would appreciate because we did a lot of all you can eat sushi when you were here. And they were really hurting because obviously people aren't going to have sushi and then you can still do takeout, right? And curbside pickup and all that. But when I thought about it, I'm like, who orders seafood to go? Like, I don't know. I don't really feel like that's a very popular item. So they were actually very stressed about like, we're going to have to maybe start laying people off. And it was like, now I'm kind of, as much as like I feel like telling some of these stories is good and hopefully making an impact and shedding light on good stuff amongst this, I also see why I got into sports because it's just like some of the stuff is hard to like see on a daily basis of like the real struggles that people are going through. And but that's kind of what I signed up for. So yeah, long story short, they've turned me into a news guy now with no sports going on.
If you're struggling for sports, they I guess, what is it, marble racing is like becoming a whole thing. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen some videos. Yeah, are people making money off that and stuff, or what?
People are legitimately betting on that. Yes.
Well, that's also one thing I thought about in this town, especially in Vegas, is so many people are professional gamblers. There's even a guy at our station that plays poker every Friday down at the Pepper Mill, and not doing that anymore.
I mean, I'm sure they're finding ways to still gamble. It's just
that's true. Online, if you're
they
like
gotta get a little inventive. Well,
right.
A lot of places online you can't even technically gamble for real money these days, but I'm sure there's ways around all that for sure.
People getting together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I forget what I was going to ask you after that.
Well, as far as people who do sports betting, that's not happening.
So sports is pretty much, in shambles right now and not really knowing what's going on. I guess NBA, NFL, not NFL, but NBA, I'm sure NFL is going to follow soon. NASCAR, they did the whole esports thing. I don't know if you try to catch that. And ESPN is literally doing a whole stream of, NBA players playing each other on 2K.
Which is super cool. Like, you got to adapt anyway, right? There's no blueprint for how to handle this. So to me, that's like super odd. And those guys are all down for it. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. And it's kind of good that like ESPN was already kind of in the video game, so to speak, early on, starting to publicize that more. And now they really like need it.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched a little bit, but I'm just like, it's not for me. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? But I'm sure there's people.
Yeah, exactly.
People are still craving anything they can NBA related, because obviously this was a big time for them. They were getting ready to go to playoffs, and they had whole storylines going, and now it's I don't know how they're going to really go forward, because who knows when they're going to be able to do things like this. Is like that day unprecedented.
Yeah, that day when they ended up suspending the season was like super surreal, because then that's what really got everything started, obviously, because the NBA is so popular. But as a Lakers fan, I'm like, being the pettiness in me is like, man, we're on our way to something special in June. And so now you wonder what the heck's about to happen.
Yeah, like, I don't know, because like I said, my league, they're talking about coming back in July. And I'm like, bro, like, I don't even know how you do that. Like,
right? Like, do
the
you
rhythm
want to do that?
is going to be way different, so people are not going to be keeping the same type shape. The chemistry, the rhythm is not going to be the same. Like, if you have momentum, like, that's gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's weird. Like, I don't know how they're going to go forward with this. I think Italy basically just canceled their entire season, and they had like 10, 12 games left, So it's rough. Yeah, it's definitely rough, man. Like, it's a lot of unknowns. But I think, like I said, people are going to have to start putting those type of contingencies in place now.
Exactly.
They have to learn from this, like, in a hurry.
Well, one thing you'll never know the number, but you wonder how many lives have been saved by, the amount of sporting events, because nothing really brings people together like sports, truly.
Yeah,
literally and
tens of
figuratively.
thousands of people, in one area. It's not good at this time.
So, and then the other side of that is, once they do come back, there's a great chance that they do it without fans, right? Which is very weird in its own way. So
we're for sure doing it without sports if we do come back, and I don't think I would do it if it was a whole arena, honestly. And I don't think a lot of NBA players would do it if it was the whole arena too, because it just doesn't make sense at this time. Like, nobody knows, like, literally nobody knows what's going on. So it's like, why would you even risk it type situation, And also the travel. So it's going to have to be, I think, in one or two areas, and just kind of do it tournament style, because travel is some of the biggest concerns. So I didn't read up too much on it. But I had seen something about how China was trying to construct some kind of plan where their league basically all took place, like you said, in the same area, and the players like actually stayed in that same area. They never left it. They like put the league in a bubble. They were going to try to do, a safe bubble and continue playing. But I don't know if that ever materialized. So I have some friends who play in China, and they were basically trying to have it in one city, one area for the remainder of the season, which wasn't that much longer anyways. But they're trying to have it basically everybody stays in the same cities, everybody plays in the same city, and just do it like that. But I don't know if they actually did it, because I think they started having some kind of resurgence from people coming back into the country. So I think they postponed it again. Even Japan, they tried to come back like maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and then they did it for like 1 or 2 weeks and then ended up just canceling it all together. It's like, yeah, you can try a lot of things, but also you still never know. You know, everything's such in a flux like right now, like, and so fragile that, yeah, you can try, but I don't know how that's really, really going to work out. I think if anybody will do it, it will be the NBA, just because there's a lot of money, you know, riding on that, and I'm sure they'll try to find a way to do it. It's going to be weird either way, and like no fans is, I don't know how, you know, it's like a scrimmage, and I don't know if you've been part of a scrimmage like that. It's just not, it's not the same, bro. Like, it's just not. So,
well, yeah, you wonder what the play will be like, because obviously guys are motivated and competitive against each other, but the fans bring out so much more a lot of times.
Add a lot, yeah.
And actually the experience of like watching a game too, like the natural noise that you might take for granted of the crowd. You like, once you lose that, like that's crazy. That's actually a really crazy thought. But one thing I did see is people thinking that you might be able to hear the trash talk a little better, which that would be kind of fun, I think.
I think they will try to mute the trash talk, I'm gonna be honest, because the trash talk isn't necessarily TV friendly. So I highly doubt they're gonna have mics on players at that time, you know. So,
well, I think most people who watch should know, but if you need a little inside baseball, there's a delay. There's always a delay, and that's why sometimes you'll hear the sound go out right after a play under the basket or something, because they were able to hear a guy say something, and then they're, oh, that's coming up, turn it down.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think wrestling just tried to do it. They did WrestleMania 36, and they did an empty, like one of their empty production studios, basically like a film studio with the wrestling ring in the middle with no fans. And I caught a little bit of that, and it was fucking weird. Like,
I didn't get to see any of that. I need to check it out.
Specifically for wrestling, I think it's even weirder with no fans, because fans are literally 90% of the hype about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, people getting
like they're performing to the fans.
Yeah, they're performing to the crowd. Like, how do you do taunts? How do you do, you know, how do you like really play to the crowd? Like, you can't. So it's just like, yeah, it was really fucking weird.
Yeah, that's a weird first one to be rolled out. A weird first, event to be rolled out with no fans.
Yes. I mean, they keep trying UFC, and that's just not gonna happen. I think he's crazy. Like, he's still trying.
Like they were really gung-ho at first about like, oh, we're good. We're moving on full steam ahead.
That's not happening.
Like, that's like one of the last sports you want to do, last things. You know what I mean? They're spitting all over each other. They're breathing. Like, what?
I mean, like I said, he's still trying it. He's still trying to go for April, I think. I was like, I don't see it happening. And if it does, it's not going to be good. Like, it's just not. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no,
like,
and in the long run for his brand, too, no, you can't. There's no coming back from that.
I mean, I appreciate people still trying, you know? I mean, they say it's for the fans, but obviously it's more for the money. But
yeah, let's be honest here.
But it's just at this time, there's nothing you can really do about it. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you're staying busy during these times. I don't know. I mean, technically, I guess you are busy because you are an essential worker, right? Reporters,
journalism. It's kind of crazy, yeah. Well, it's funny because my schedule has flipped essentially, because I used to work like a 3 to midnight shift, because I would do the 5 and the 6 o'clock news and the 11 o'clock news. But now I'm working in the mornings, like a 9 to or like a 10 to 7. And so I'm one of the few people in the world, I feel like, whose screen time has actually gone down. And I feel kind of weird saying that, but it really has. And so like I'm working a decent amount. It's kind of like nerve wracking, because I do have to go out in the community still. And, I'm interacting with great people, but at this point you just never know who has been where or what's, this and that. And so
you glove the masked up out there, or, obviously you can't do masks since you're a journalist.
That's the thing. I'm still doing on-camera work, and I have to interview people and stuff. But we've taken as many precautions as possible as far as like limiting contact with people. I'm walking around with a jar of Lysol wipes, more like obviously for my own comfort, but to make other people feel at ease too. I like disinfect the microphone before we do the interview or whatever, stuff like that. But but like I won't lie. There's been like close quarters with people, like closer than you would probably want to be right now. But that's just like part of our job too, is like getting out and like interacting and telling stories.
Yeah, so it's good, I guess, and bad, both that you are considered an essential worker. It's good because you can keep working at a time, especially when people aren't having jobs and shit. But also like you are more exposed being out there.
Right. That's the thing, man. That's tough. But at the same time, I get to like spotlight a business who's doing great things. And then because of my story, maybe they get like a lot more increased business, or they get connected with somebody else. That's always like the rewarding part of it all. But it's, I do commend our station for taking pretty good measures. Our whole ownership has taken pretty good measures to keep us as safe as possible. They have like thermometers at the station, like for everybody who comes in, like take your temperature. They're trying to limit how much we come in and whatnot. But I as you kind of were alluding to, I am trying to like take this time to like do other things though, with like a different schedule, like using free time differently. I am spending a lot of time with my wife because she's in the school district, and so she just has her like meetings every once in a while throughout the day. But this is like really good to do, and just kind of try to expand a little bit. Like we got to use this time. We got to use this time right, because there's a lot of people wasting time right now, I'm sure. And this is when you got strike.
Big thing. Yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, it's tough, but it's also an opportunity, especially if you are in a position to have that kind of free time, instead of not worry about just survival, and you can, just live pretty comfortably. And it's just how you use that time. And this is definitely an opportunity to try new things, to do things and expand and just grow. There's always a huge opportunity after something like this. So it's just who's ready for it type situation. So kind of speaking on that, I guess one of my major questions is sports journalism. Like, I mean, to me, I feel like it's kind of an antiquated kind of thing, especially these days with social media and YouTube, and how easy it is basically to have your own platform now these days. I think it's that traditional kind of setup of ESPN anchor and all that. I feel like it's becoming kind of a antiquated type system, man. I can't completely disagree with you there, man. At the same time, the position I'm in, like, with that said, some local stations have got rid of sports, but Reno is a market that would never like lose its local sports. Yeah.
So when you're doing local sports, it's a little bit different. But with you said, the whole style, and yeah, I mean, there's people in our town that cover sports that don't have a platform like I do, a channel, but they still have a following, right? Like a television job that I have. So yeah, it's something you see a lot of now, which at the same time makes me even more motivated to like try new avenues of storytelling. And that's like, for me, it's never been like a TV or bust type of thing, for sure. And that's why, like, I, as much as I like pride myself of being like a good on camera presence and trying to like tell stories well in front of the camera, I like equally enjoy doing it, whether it's behind the camera, actually capturing video or still photos, or doing audio stories or writing. Like, I try to stay as seasoned as I can in all aspects, because, as you said, and this was happening when we were in school too, the business was just ever changing. It was getting slowly into like that streaming. I remember my J101 professor was like, in 10 years from now, there will be no Blockbuster. And there was still, a few of those around when we were starting college. And sure enough, it was less than 10 years that was all wiped out. And so yeah, we're seeing it now. I mean, everybody still watches like ESPN and whatnot, but you see a lot of their content is what are people doing? I mean, nowadays it's what people are doing at home, but a lot of their content is like people's people's Instagram posts, or what people are doing, on their Twitter account. Like, that's what they use. That's what a lot of their content is fed off of now, is like, how are other people telling their stories in their individual channels?
Right. So, I mean, like everybody through middle school, high school, I was watching SportsCenter every single day. That was just something that was constantly on TV, and you were watching ESPN every single day. You're watching top 10s, you're watching recaps, you're watching all these, behind the scenes stuff. But I literally have not watched ESPN probably since beginning of college. Like, honestly, like, outside of, games and programming and stuff like that, but like actually like their programming, like the original program, I probably have not watched a single episode of anything, because, like I said, like, with social media and the new age of streaming and everything, like, you don't even need recaps for them, because it's on Instagram that moment it happens. Like, if you see a play happen, it's literally on Instagram from NBA themselves, like on their own platform. It's happening at the moment, or somebody else is posting it, or somebody's capturing it. So I don't even need to like go through them for recaps or top 10s or anything like that. And then it's like the news reporting, you don't really need that because it's also out there on Twitter and whatever, literally the second it happens. So it's like, it's a declining, effect and now they're just relying more on their talk shows and like their debate platforms and stuff like that. But even then, it's like it's becoming so crowded of a space. It's hard to see where it necessarily goes from that. And I think ESPN in particular has been pretty slow about adapting. Like even on YouTube, they just started putting like fuller clips of like their stuff on there, because they would put like 2 minutes of like some topic or whatever, while like Fox Sports is putting whole segments of their, Undisputed with Skip and Shannon. They were doing huge numbers on YouTube, probably almost as more than they were doing on TV, and I don't know. It's just weird to see like where it's all going, because you don't really need a personality per se to really give you that behind the scenes look, because athletes are doing that themselves, like without anybody in between. So they're getting their own messaging out there. And then on top of that, just Joe Smo is giving his opinion and stuff out there on YouTube or whatever. And like, and there's whole channels that get millions of hits that literally don't have a face to them, but people like following them just because they're giving, that type of information without having to go through pay that cable subscription or whatever, for it. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of where that goes. Because me personally, like after the years, like I got being in it so long that I'm more interested, like more about like the storytelling aspect of it than necessarily the straight up news reporting and recap stuff.
Well, yeah, that's like, I mean, some days the gig is kind of monotonous. And that was something that, I mean, even before I got into it, the business had already changed, because it's not about getting it first. It's not about being first on air anymore. It's long not been about that. It's about being first on social media. It's about like live streaming the news as it's happening. Like you want to like see it as it's happening. And so, like when I look at my sportscast, it's tough, because like a lot of times I feel like I'm telling you things you already know. And so I need to like try to like be unique about it, you know what I mean? Or like make you chuckle, or like, I don't know. It's like some days are like very difficult to be like, how am I going to like really present something to you that like you're like interested in? And like is new to you. And like I think your medium everybody's medium is different. Like with me, I think like a lot of like, I think our demographic is probably a lot of some people that probably don't like, get as much social media news. So like, there's probably I'm trying to say that there's a lot of old people that watch the news. So I have a feeling that like, we're first to tell them a lot of things, but there's a lot of people that, they'll just watch it and be like, oh, I knew about this, when it happened at 2:00 today.
Yeah. Like even if I'm not trying to know what happened, like somehow it's going to hit your stream like some way. Yeah. If you follow somebody that follows somebody, like it's just going to somehow hit your stream. And by the time, like if you were waiting, like in the old days, waiting till like ESPN came on or whatever, that is like, oh, this is old. This is like super old news by now. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole story twisted since then. And it's just like, like you said, now they're like reporting on social, like ESPN were doing like whole segments on like, Antonio Brown's latest tweet, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. It's just like, man, it's interesting to see how shit is going, it's becoming, I feel like more and more like TMZ type reporting than it is just because traditional sports reporting is just, it's changing.
No, and I'll be right honest. I'm right there with you. I don't watch a ton of ESPN. One, because I don't have cable at home. I do have it at the station, but no, I just at the same time I don't need that really. Like that's not my forte. I'm not one. And there's some local. And it's like to each their own, we're all different in our storytelling, but like some will do that kind of storytelling where they show athletes, maybe it's even just like an athlete at the local university, they'll blow up one of their tweets or whatever, or they'll show like some of their stuff. And I do that here and there, more so if a kid's like announcing he's going to transfer or something like that, or you know what I mean? But I try not to like get too involved or like get too gung ho about like those kind of, niche things of like, just, I don't know, like sensationalizing too much stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they feel like that's the only way they can really reach people now these days is like focusing on the sensationalization of shit, because there's so much just information out there that it's hard to even get through. And yeah, it's really like, I really don't know where it's going to head, because I just don't see that model continuing to work for too much longer like that. Like it's just the amount of money you're going to have to put in to do that, and the amount of money you're going to receive back from it is not going to equal out like that, because like I said, people aren't really turning towards those sources for their media news and whatever.
It's interesting times for sure. And it's also like the whole like daily cycle, like trying to keep it fresh. Whereas I think you would agree, like what we would be more inclined to wanting to do is stuff that like takes longer to like form, you know, like a long form kind of story that like you put time into. Those are always the ones that like I love doing the best, things that I get to like sink my teeth into a little bit. Yeah. But in like our, you know, world, it's so, everything's so quick that it's on to the next. So I can't tell you how many stories I've like pushed out that I'm like, man, I wish I could have had like another hour with this, but I just can't. Like it needs to air now, and then I need to move on to the next thing. And I think that's sometimes very frustrating. So
yeah, I mean, those platforms aren't built for that, you know, and they need to see the return on it, and spending, you know, months of research on something isn't gonna necessarily be their big piece, especially on TV.
It's not sexy, man.
Yeah. Like, but I mean, one good thing about it with YouTube and stuff, I think that type of video essay type of more deep dive stuff is coming back on those type of platforms online, because it can like literally live there for forever. How long, you know, people can just keep rediscovering and finding it. Whereas TV, you have to be kind of there for the moment, you know, like, yeah, it's some on demand shit, but it's like not the same outside of like their 30 for 30 type stuff. Like I think that type of stuff lives so much better online.
That's what I'm saying.
It's kind of opening that up.
Even sometimes when they just have, and there's only like certain ESPN reporters that really hit it out of the park, but like a Tom Rinaldi, like 6-minute feature story, like those even go crazy. Like people just really love those. But then as you said, like 30 for 30, those are the ones that people really talk about like forever. Like, have you seen that one? Have you seen that one? It's not, did you see that highlight the other night, or did you see Antonio Brown's tweet? Speaking of that, how about man, I'm drawing a blank on the name, Last Dance or whatever, that's coming out early now.
Michael Jordan, 10-part documentary. I think there's no better time to put something out like that than now. Quite honestly, like Jordan's always going to do huge numbers no matter what, and then you have a whole 10-part in-depth documentary like that. Yeah, like that's now that's basically gonna be their whole year, basically. I think.
Oh, it's going to be incredible. 10 parts. And it sounds like it's all this video that, I'm just looking it up, April 19th, the first one. Yeah, all this video that hasn't been seen and stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like, I think that behind the scenes looks are the ones that people really like crave. Like, just just the reporting. Not so much because, like you said, you can just get it anywhere. Like, literally anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, they're going to have to start shifting for sure, like heavily, if I think they're going to continue to be successful, you know.
Well, there's
at the rate that they were.
Yeah, they just have so many resources that they can afford. It almost feels like to lack in certain areas and then make up for it in other places. But yeah, you said it. They got a lot. They got stuff. Everybody's got a little stuff to shore up in certain spots. But I mean, this time is given. Yeah, it's just weird to go on those pages, even like ESPN.com, and to see the stuff they're pumping out at you, because it's just. I mean, like I said, there's no blueprint for this though, right? Like you don't know what to like. I don't know. What are people trying to soak in right now? It's just a weird time.
Yeah, I mean, they're promoting NBA 2K right now. Like it's just like, you know, what the fuck is going on? You know, so
people love their 2K, man. I played a little bit in college, but that's it.
I mean, I used to love 2K. I don't think I would spend hours watching somebody else play it, but you know, each to each their own. You know, like it's whatever, bro. Like,
you still a gamer like that? I know you used to be a gamer.
Yeah, I'm still a gamer. Not as much, obviously. I'm fucking busy all the goddamn time, but
that's good.
Every moment's now and then. But I don't really play sports games like that, honestly. Like anymore, it's just, you know, if I do sit down something, it's gonna be some like long single player type shit just to get away. But for the most part, it's like work, man. Like work, and it's been even crazier with all this. Even more time going to that, but yeah, it's interesting times. I don't know where everything's gonna be heading, but I think, I got some interesting ideas about what we do in, you know, the future, content-wise and everything. So
I can't wait to continue to connect and, you know, get to meet other folks that are involved. And, you know, like I said, I got to see when this was sprouting with you in that. What was it, like 491? What was it? What class? Mr. Simmons, right? Professor Simmons?
Yeah, Brett. Yeah, I just don't remember the actual name of the class. I just know it started out as personal branding for sure. And like he wanted us to start a blog, and you know, people were blogging about whatever they were blogging about. I'm just, you know, not interested in blogging about myself, so I just wanted to, you know, I just like dope people that do creative type shit, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yes, man, it's admirable to see, and I'm humbled to be along and be doing this with you, man. And I can't wait to, like I said, connect. And, now's the time when you got to be fearless and like you realize how precious every moment is that we have, every opportunity is that we have. And I'm only, we're just barely hitting 30. And for me, I can already look back at so many moments where I'm like, I wish I would have went a little harder there or like took advantage of this. And so you got to strike while you can. And now's the time. Every moment's precious.
Yeah,
really.
Perfect time right now. So yeah, man, thanks for joining me. Just wanted to kind of intro you to the community, to the LLF community out there, people that follow us. Newest, member, we'll see what's going on. Got some content. He's definitely pumping out some type of content. I know your main focus has been sports, but I think there's a lot of areas we can go with that. And so just guys, definitely be on the lookout for stuff coming from him and come from his way. And if you want to give people your socials, where they can follow you, whatever.
Yeah, it's just I'm at Mike Stefansson pretty much on all of the above, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, MIKE. The last name is going to throw everyone for a loop, but Stefansson, Icelandic. I had to represent. We'll have it out there as soon as I can start getting some stuff going for you, man. Can't wait.
Yeah, put all the details, info in the descriptions of where this goes up. As always, if you have any questions, comments, topic suggestions about this show, past shows, or any future shows, you can let us know in the comments down below. And if you like any of the gear that I rock in these videos, like this is a throwback. You can't get this right now, or this. You can also have the site and grab some for yourself. But until then, thanks for guys for listening and following as always. If you are new and you're liking what we're putting out, definitely give us a like or subscribe, as that helps out greatly. Until then, we'll catch you guys soon. Keep living life fearless. Peace.